it's Claire here from JH Coaching. One of the things that can be a real problem for women is getting your period on the day of your race. This can be a real demotivator for people and can cause worry. I've certainly been at the start line with friends who've said, I'm going to have an awful race, I've just come on my period, I feel awful. And I've also had similar experiences myself. However, I think that with some careful planning and a little bit of thinking, being on your period doesn't have to be the end of your race and can actually be a really helpful time for you to race for lots of different reasons. So, message one, if you get your period on race day, don't panic. There are lots of positives that we can draw out of this. Okay, so let's have a little think about your cycle and what happens in your cycle to explain what might be happening if you do get your period on race day and the pros and cons of that. So if you imagine that you're an average person, as we all are, I'm sure, with an average sort of 28-day cycle, you can split your cycle into week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And the three main hormones that we're going to look at. So let's have a look first at estrogen, which will make red. And we start off in week 1, day 1 being the first day of your period, week 1 being the first week. And it sort of climbs very, very gradually, really from about week 2, and it peaks sort of at the end of week 2, starts dropping in the middle of week 3, but climbs back up in week 3 and then sort of tapers off by the end of week 4. Let's now have a look at testosterone, which will make blue. So testosterone starts a bit lower, and generally in women doesn't do a massive amount, but there is a little peak. And again, it's at that magic end of week 2, and then it levels off again. And the last one, progesterone. So again, starts off lower again than testosterone and estrogen here. And when we get to the middle of week 2, it starts to climb, and it climbs right up above estrogen, and then drops down again. Okay, so that's kind of how your hormones work when you're in your different phases of your cycle. And what you can see is week 1, day 1, the day you get your period, your hormones are all at their lowest. So this is good news in a lot of ways, because as our hormones start to climb, things start to happen in the body, because it's really starting to think more about having babies than it is about running. You start to retain more water, you feel bloated, you might get a bit of swelling in your legs, your blood starts to thicken. That can make things like controlling your temperature pretty hard, it can make sweating hard. Your body is starting to favour different types of energy to work. Specifically in this luteal phase, you're more likely to be breaking down protein when you run, and your body is more likely to favour fat above carbohydrate for its energy source. What does this mean? Well, if we think about carbohydrate as the fast energy source, the quick go energy source, and fat as the steady, longer, slower energy source, really in this phase, in this last 2 weeks, we're going to be better at long and slow, at endurance stuff. In this phase, in this first week in particular, we're in the go phase. The hormones are low, our blood plasma's back to normal, we've lost all that bloatedness, and we feel better. So cramps and headaches aside, there's actually a lot going for us if we get our period on race day. If we think about the different stages of your cycle and the different hormones within that cycle and how they rise and fall, day 1, the day of your period, can actually be the best time to race. Paula Radcliffe broke the women's record in the 2002 Chicago Marathon while she was on a period and suffering from period cramps. And similarly, Uta Pippig in 1996 won the Boston Marathon while she was on a period. There's lots of evidence to suggest that being on your period and being in that low hormone phase can actually be a great time to really push yourself for lots of reasons. The next thing to think about is preparation. We can't choose when the race is. We might have an idea a month or so if we're regular before our big race that it's gonna fall on the day of our period. So we can always prepare, and I would definitely always suggest that for any possible events that can happen on your big race. So the first thing clearly is about keeping clean and dry. And for races up to marathon, that's usually not too much of a problem unless you have particularly heavy periods, because we can just make sure that we put some have some sanitary products clean, just before the start of the race, and that will take us through. For longer events, it can be a little bit more tricky. Jenny Tuff actually wrote quite a frank article about her problems with being on her period during a multi-day cycle event in a country where it was also quite difficult to get sanitary products, and she hadn't expected to be on her period at that time. So I would always, for longer events, make sure you have some sanitary products with you, because you never know. And think about the ones that are going to work for you. My personal preference is a moon cup, because you just need the one. And so long as you've got something to keep your hands clean, all you need to do is empty it and put it back in. There's no carrying extra products. So, but that's a personal preference. It's not for everybody. But certainly, if you're on a big adventure and you're away from home, maybe in a different country where it's not as easy to wash your hands, making sure that you've got something to keep yourself clean and to keep your hands clean, if you're doing something like putting some internal products in, is going to be something to think about, even if it's just a little bottle of alcohol hand wash. The other thing to think about is, obviously, although on the one hand, when you're on your period, you're in your low hormone phase, that's a great time to train. On the other, it comes with the added issue of things like cramps, doesn't it? Just generally not feeling yourself, certainly on the first day, and especially if your period's really heavy. But there are a few things you can do. Obviously, there are painkillers that you can take, but do so with caution, especially things like NSAIDs. They can cause an upset stomach, and you may already have an upset stomach because of your period. So just think about it and only take things that you've taken before and work for you. Another way to manage it is just to use a hot water bottle in the morning, and then have a very gentle warm up. In actual fact, gentle movement can be really, really helpful for things like period cramps. So that's certainly something that I've done. I've just made sure that I've had a gentle warm up, not tried to really blast it and do loads of strides, and just thought, right, well, this is it. This is my day. I've trained for this day. My period doesn't take away the fitness that I've got. I'm going to have a gentle warm up and just go gradually into the race. In actual fact, I've done some really great races while I've been on my period. I've also had some truly horrible ones, but most of the time it's been fine. I think the other final point to say is it's really important in any race, whatever your situation, to keep positive. Things will happen in events that maybe we hadn't planned for, maybe aren't quite ideal, but keeping positive is going to be a really important part of making sure that you perform the best your body can do on any given day. So if your body presents your period on that day, keep positive. Remind yourself maybe of Paula Radcliffe, of Uta Pippig. Remind yourself, I'm in the low hormone phase. This is a great phase for me to be in terms of running fast. And go for it. It can be the best time ever to race. You may find that you, like Paula and Uta, do your best race ever, despite or maybe because of where you are in your cycle. I hope that's helpful. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, do subscribe, do click the bell, and then you will always know when a new video appears on this channel and you'll never miss one. Thanks for listening. Bye.